for the First Responder Playbook. It is my pleasure to have our guest, Ashley Jones. She is a first responder, she's a coach, and now she can add to her resume author. Ashley, I didn't do you justice, so tell the people about you. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. So yes, I am a new author and I'm very, very excited to share that with the world. My background is I'm an empowerment coach for first responders, and I'm also a full-time police officer, and I've been in law enforcement for just over 13 years.
Awesome. Was law enforcement always the goal, or just like some of us, did you kind of just backdoor into it?
Um, so excuse me, I'm just getting over a very bad cold, but um law enforcement has always been in the picture. It just wasn't always street policing. So when I was younger, I was trying to figure out different avenues to take within law enforcement because I was extremely overweight. So I'm like, there's no way that I can be a street cop. But obviously, things changed. I initially wanted to be a parole officer. But while I was within college, that changed. And then I started out from the bottom. I was a security officer, I became a peace officer, and then I went and do street policing.
Okay. Um, when you say street policing, is that like a special unit, like street crimes of some sort, or
It's just how I classify it. I just became a police officer because so the reason why I personally state it in the way that I do was the fact that when I was a peace officer, I was working on a college campus. So my duties were strictly for that area. So street policing is just how I classify it.
fair enough. And for the listeners that are not familiar with law enforcement, there is a little bit of difference in how they operate on a day-to-day basis on a college campus versus maybe a municipality or a sheriff's office compared to calls, all kinds of stuff. And so, while they're both certified law enforcement, they are a little bit different.
Yeah,
So, so
absolutely.
tell me,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say the difference, at least in New York State, is that peace officers, at least for where I was, I only had jurisdictional boundaries on the actual campus that I was working for. And then our arrest powers were actually, even though we had arrest powers, they were given to the local outside agency to make the arrests. So.
Okay. Um, Once you made that transition into being actually outside of the campus, do you feel like that was the right? Like, do you feel like it's such a different role? Do you enjoy it still? I mean, um, I know that there is something to be said for like being on the front lines compared to like when I went to the training department or become a supervisor. I mean, you kind of miss being out there on the front lines every day. So do you still enjoy it every day today?
I do enjoy the street work aspect of it. If I could go back, would I necessarily choose to become a police officer, or would I stay on the campus? I probably would stay on the campus just because New York State has really changed a lot for our laws, holding criminals accountable. Um, and I was actually making more money as a peace officer than I am now as a police officer. So hindsight's 2020, but I set out for the goal of becoming a police officer and I worked really, really hard to get here. So I do still enjoy what I've accomplished and helping people.
That's awesome. I love it. So, how did you decide that coaching was a secondary path for you? And let's talk about that.
So just from me posting on social media, a lot of people would reach out to me and like ask me like, "Hey, can you help me with this?" Or "You should really look into being a coach. You're very inspirational, motivational. I think you could help a lot of people." So I sat with it a while, let it resonate with me, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. I should actually do that because it makes perfect sense. I'm doing it anyway. why not actually make something out of it?
Yeah, for sure. So, did you go through like a certification process at all with that, or I mean, there are coaches that just kind of jump into it, you know, two toes, you're 10 toes down. What was your process like on that?
Yeah, I was actually very surprised when I was researching that a lot you can just become like a life coach. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's so interesting. Don't need to be certified. And I mean, I know your personal background is enough to coach somebody in life. I mean, you're living life, right? But that certification just helps, and it helps you hone in on your capabilities to help others. So I do have my life coaching certification. I do have a mindfulness coaching certification. There's a few other things that I would like to get as well. Because I would like to be a little bit more well-rounded and bring some other things to first responders that aren't quite out there yet, just to be fully helpful in what I know I'm capable of doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I recently I'm working on my ICF certification, but I went through two different life coaching courses, one geared specifically for first responders, and then one geared towards more of a normal audience. And then in my doctoral classes, we did some coaching as well too. But I will say that what I thought coaching was, and I think what a lot of the general public thinks coaching is not really what coaching is. I think they think that you're there to give them advice and kind of push them in a direction to better themselves, and it's actually more of a reflection journey of making yourself better. And so I think that at least in Oklahoma, there's still a lot of people that are unfamiliar with it, and that's my goal is to change that because I think it can be absolutely applied to the first responder world. The goal of helping people that just changes the uniform we wear, and that there's still a lot of help out there to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think that the coaching aspect, at least from up here in New York State, it's very foreign to people, especially like first responders. When their ego gets in their way, they're like, "What do I need a life coach for?" Excuse me, or what do I need an empowerment coach for? Because their ego's in the way. But once they really dive into all that we can do with each other and help each other, it really is a great move.
Yeah, and I think this last month was my 11th year in law enforcement, and
Oh,
I think it's slowly getting better in how we tackle those like mental health issues, changing that culture of silence, suffering in silence. But we're not where we need to be yet, and I think that's where coaching can come in. I really truly believe that we need to get to the point to where agencies are having, sort of like a peer support team. In that you have a coach that's bound by confidentiality agreements. But I look back on myself during COVID, and I got out for a year to sell insurance. Terrible time to do it. Um,
sure.
but I was so burnt out um, because I wasn't fulfilled in what I was doing. But I didn't have anybody to talk to. And looking back on it, I wish I would have had a coach to talk to in that either, hey, where do I want to end up and how do I get there? Or just, a general life coach and saying, okay, I'm so burnt out. How do we get out of this? And that's really where I think that these bigger agencies that have, 100, 500 officers could benefit from a coaching program. And that when these people get to that wall, because they will get there, we don't want them to leave. We want them to flourish. We can start working with them to get them back on a right path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe like that mindset for these agencies should have started at like an academy level. So that way it could be instilled in officers, any first responder. So that way they don't get to that burnout level. That way they don't get to that stuck level or I don't know how to help myself. Um, I think it would be very beneficial in nature if not only all agencies could adopt a program, but it also be adopted within the academy level so our minds can be molded while we're not tainted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does, and I truly believe. I don't like talking about it a ton just because I don't want to bore my audience, but I'm doing my doctorate in strategic leadership, and so I've actually just had to do a research class over you picked a topic, and so I did stress leadership for first responders, and they really wanted you to kind of hone down and get specific, but as I dove in there, like I couldn't get more specific than that because like first responders, you deal with stress like your general calls, you deal stress with your high risk calls, but you also deal stress from the public. You also deal with stress from your internal politics at your agency. And they're all not the same, but they all still add up. And then finally your dam breaks and you lead to alcoholism, suicide, leaving the agency. And so we've really got to do a better job to start addressing those issues before it gets to the point of that dam breaking, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. And those toxic coping mechanisms that you mentioned as well, like we all turn to the basic things that aren't actually helpful in growth and healing, which makes things even worse, even though at the time it may seem like it's numbing it and making it feel better. Um, so that's important too, for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You touched on it with the toxic coping mechanisms. First responders, whether it's fire, EMS, police, they all kind of dabble in those toxic coping mechanisms. We eat terrible. They drink when they're off duty. They don't sleep well. What are some suggestions on tackling those issues to better ourselves?
Well, to be honest, it kind of starts from yourself. Like you have to be self aware that you're even going down that path to begin with, because a lot of people don't see problems with those behaviors. So if you don't see a problem, you're not going to step in and be like, oh, maybe I should try something different or try to fix that. So once you become more self aware, then you can dabble in healthier coping mechanisms that don't involve depressants or um, random, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like a dopamine boost. So, like, infidelity is a great thing around here for first responders. So that would be like a quick dopamine boost and a rush because you're like, oh my God, I need that. So just toxic coping mechanisms, you just have to really be self-aware first before you can even move on to healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you talk about that because all the older cops, when I first got in law enforcement, they're like, "Oh, you're not a real cop till you get on your second divorce." And I'm like, Jesus, like,
Right.
why would you say that? And then I know cops that would, have relations on duty and stuff like that, or sneak around on their significant others, and I'm like, that's not healthy. It's not morally acceptable. It's not healthy. Um, but they weren't self-aware in that they were really kind of self-sabotaging themselves.
Yes.
I'll give you a good example. The other day, I shared a meme. I'm not a drinker. Maybe a beer a year, if that. And my a lot of my friends drink regularly, and street cops. Well, I don't normally agree with all of what they post, but they shared a thing that they said basically that maybe it's time to put the booze down, and a lot of my friends just were like, well, maybe we need to put the McDonald's down, or stuff like that, and those are valid points, but
Yeah.
that still doesn't change the fact that a lot of cops drink to drink their problems away, and why people do need to put down McDonald's. That's not the issue I'm talking about. That's just kind of deflecting. And I think that, you can't say, hey, my problem's not as bad as this other problem. They're still problems. And so
Yeah.
we've really got to do a better job of self reflecting and saying, hey, if we've got a drinking problem, or hey, if we got a eating out problem, like how do we address that? Because God help me, like I've been there, like I'm not perfect, I've especially like working overnights, fast food, the only thing open is McDonald's or whatever. So like I get it, but
Right.
it's just one of those things that we have to, as a first responder, look at ourselves, because if we can't help ourselves, how are we going to help other people?
Oh, absolutely. And being perfect is a fallacy. Like nobody is perfect. For example, like I stress eat, so I can go to a death scene and I can come right back to the station and eat food. Um, like it does not bother me because that's how I cope with high stress situations. I'm like, oh my God, I need something. And it kind of takes my mind off of what I just witnessed as well. Whereas most people would witness people who have passed and they'd be like, oh my God, like I lost my hunger. And I'm like, nah, give me food. So there's so many things. Nobody's perfect. We all have different coping mechanisms. We all have things we can work on. But yes, it all comes down to being self aware. And then once you can do that, like I read in my book, like self preservation techniques, so you don't go down the rabbit hole. And you can always pull yourself out if you catch yourself drifting. So,
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I think pride a lot of the times holds us back, in that we don't want to admit that sometimes we need to talk to somebody. And I really I don't think that what we have been doing has been working. So I'll
no,
give you
absolutely not.
yeah, I'll give you a good example in that, um in officer involved shootings, Oklahoma actually has a very good peer support network that's been developing out to like help agencies. After that they're not there are agency specific peer support teams, but like there's a network of them from different agencies that will respond to bigger events, all across the state. And an agency I know had an officer involved shooting last year, and it was brought to their attention that, like, hey, we can bring this peer support team in, and like all the SWAT guys were like, we don't need to talk to anybody. Okay, well, I understand where you're coming from, but like eventually, everybody's got a point to where it all hits. Like there's just no getting around that, and it never went anywhere because the administration never was like, hey, you guys need to talk to these people at least for a little bit. And so like it's just a wasted resource if we don't make our people actually use it. And it didn't cost anything. It didn't cost the agency money. It didn't cost the people money, and they never talked to anybody. But I have no doubt in my mind that those officers involved eventually will get to a breaking point of, hey, like I need to talk to somebody, or hey, like, I do something I probably shouldn't be doing. So we can kick the can down the road all we want, but eventually, you're going to trip over it.
Oh, yeah. And to say that this job doesn't affect you is a lie because it affects you, whether you're realizing that it does or not. So, in that case, yeah, your agency should be having your back enough to force you to go. Because no matter how much you say it doesn't affect you, it actually really does, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, and I laugh at it now because I skirted around the rules myself once. Be involved in a critical incident, not where we took somebody's life, but somebody took their lives in front of us. And our agency was like, "Hey, you need to go see this therapist." And I'll give my partner credit; he went, and it actually turned him around completely. Did a 360. He was kind of spiraling out of control for a long time. And he went through some EMDR training, and it helped him tremendously. But I didn't go, and no one ever like brought it back up to like, hey, did you actually go? Like, I need something to show that you actually went. And I'm sure I probably should have went, looking back on it. but I didn't. But no one ever like followed
Mhm.
up with me to say, "Hey, you actually went." And it was just kind of a
Sure.
failure on the administration's part to like they never followed up. And like I've had some anxiety and stuff later on that popped up, and I have no doubt in my mind that part of it was from that. And so I need to hold myself accountable, eventually go and talk to somebody, I'm sure. But the agency definitely should have followed up and said, "Hey, did you go, dummy?" And they never
Right.
did.
Yeah, a lot of people are afraid of the stigma that therapy holds. Um, Therapy is very hard, and you have to be very brave to put yourself out there to go to therapy. Not everybody needs to know you're going to therapy, but like I made it public that I went to therapy because it was helping me, and I wanted to help break that stigma for at least one person who might have viewed like my reel or my story on social media. um, Therapy is very hard, but it's so helpful because all you really need is just someone to make you understand an outside perspective as to why you're acting, you're viewing things in the manner in which you are, and letting you know that, hey, it's okay. And it makes sense why this is happening to you or why you feel the way that you do. It's very validating. And then it's also helpful because you can learn new tips and tricks to further help yourself to become a better version of yourself. So, therapy is a very brave space that you have to be willing to dive into, but I highly recommend it for anybody who's listening.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about your coaching, and how you're wanting to help first responders with that. And I love a couple things. You are one, a female police officer. We need more of them for
Yeah.
sure. But two, you're a female coach wanting to help in a male-dominated field. Like that takes some
Yeah.
courage to put that out there, and I love it. And so let's talk about that and how your missions to be a badass woman, but also help the first responders as well.
Yeah. The responder group is a very delicate and like difficult group to help because we are so reserved to new things. We're very cut off. Um, my coaching business itself, I'll be honest, it's not booming because you have to adapt to your clients. So people around here are not very self-aware of what they're capable of. So me choosing to go this route has been a very difficult experience. Um, but for those that I do help, it's so rewarding to watch people who give so much of themselves to others every single day finally give back to themselves. And that's really why I stay in it because it's so rewarding on so many levels.
It's funny you talk about that because I agree wholeheartedly in that they kind of teach you to niche down and focus on like the people you want to help the most. And mine, I'll admit it, mine's not the most booming business either. Um, because first responders are very hard to crack in that to get them to just try it. And like I I know a lot of cops are like, ah, I don't got anything going on. Bullshit. Like I've done this job for 11 years now. Like I know you've been through some stuff, like either personal, career, leadership, wherever the case may be. And no one lives a perfect life. So like give it a try. And they're just like, I don't know, and so it's tough. It really is. But to the ones you actually do help, it's actually really rewarding, because you're making at least a little bit of difference.
Right. And it's so funny because um like we'll run into a gunfight, we'll run into burning buildings, we'll do CPR on people, just random things. But as soon as we have to actually dive into ourselves, we're like, no, thanks, that's a little bit too uncomfortable for me. So I'm just gonna stay stuck. And I actually I had a lot more clients before I started my business. Once I started charging people, that's when like people started to like backpedal because they're like, "Oh no, like I ain't paying you. Like I want to help myself, but that's even more uncomfortable now knowing that like I'm hiring you." So it's been an interesting experience.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the problem we run into, and I think that we kind of have to change that mindset is we will go out and spend, let's just say, $20 a shift on food, um energy drinks, coffee, whatever the case may be, 4 or 5 times a week, whatever your shifts may be. But we won't spend, a little bit extra to help ourselves on the outside of work, and so we just have to change that mindset. And I slowly think we're getting there a little bit. But it's definitely still got a
Hmm.
long road to, go down. So I want to touch on,
Yeah.
your book. Like that's a big accomplishment. And how did you start going about that process? And like what made you want to write that book? And how'd you knock it out?
So I've always wanted to put something out there. Because I have so many great thoughts in my head, but like I have self-diagnosed ADD, so it's very hard for me to gather my thoughts in that manner. And I'm like, how can I reach the most people? Which was obviously through a book. So, at least in my opinion. So, um, moving forward with that, a couple years ago, I went to instructor development school. You had to create a 45 to 55-minute presentation for your class, and get up there and talk about it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is my time to shine. Um, and I'm not knocking anyone that was in the class or that goes to these classes, but we all want to take the easy way out. So while other um, police officers were doing like handcuffing techniques, how to clear a room, how to properly search people, just like random easy subjects to pop out this PowerPoint so you can pass the class. I spent like 2 months because I knew I was going to the course, creating this 45-minute PowerPoint for people to view so that way I could test the waters. Um, and birthed from that PowerPoint came my book. And I'm like, how the heck am I going to turn a 45-minute PowerPoint into a book that's worth reading? Um, and I don't know if you know who Adam Davis is,
Yes.
but yeah, great humans. So we've been following each other on social media for a while. And he's like, hey, if you ever want to write a book, I really think you should. Like, I'll be your book coach, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, no, like, I don't have the money. It's not in my finances. And then this year, earlier this year, I was like, Ashley, you really just gotta freaking like get really really uncomfortable and get this ball rolling, because I've done a few other podcast interviews and they're like, oh, like what's your next steps for the future? And I'm like, oh, I would really like to write a book. So I was always saying it but never taking the actionable steps to do it. So Adam and I linked up, I think it was January, February, March, April or May of this year, and I started typing away. He became my book coach, and I turned my 45-minute presentation into a book. So it was a lot of hard work. I was working on it every day before I went into work. Typically, and I was working on it over the summer. So in the summer, you like to do like summer activities, but because I was so determined to reach my goal to push this book out by October and November of this year, I spent a lot more time being focused and determined on my book than out having fun. But it's been a very, very rewarding experience.
That's awesome. Where can people like get your book at, and kind of tell them what it's about?
So the title of my book is The Tactical Pivot, Self-Preservation Techniques for First Responders. It is available on Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble. I'm trying to get it into local stores around here, but that's a little bit more difficult than I had expected, and it also takes time. Being a full-time police officer who works overtime, time is hard to come by. Um, but the book is it's not a picture book. So sorry to anyone who doesn't like to read, but it's a very easy read. When I was editing it, I was able to read it in less than 48 hours. Like if you really dive into it, um and they all start out the chapters with a personal story, whether it's law enforcement related, or personal life experience related. Um, and then they'll go into different techniques, for things to help you with self-preservation. Um, and it's not only for first responders, it's also for high performing individuals as well. Like anyone who reads it is going to be able to take away something from it, to make you a better person and more tapped into your highest self. So,
That's awesome. I love it. I will definitely get a copy myself because I like reading my podcast guests, books. I'm a lifelong learner, and probably too much, I guess, since I'm working on my doctorate. But you know, I've got gosh, I've probably bought 10 books over the past 5 or 6 months of my guests, and so like I'm getting through them, people. But no, I love reading them, and I think that's an amazing accomplishment, and that's making you even more of a badass. So bravo. Um, and I'm actually gonna start working with Adam hopefully in the next couple months and write my own book as well, because I definitely have
yeah,
a, a story to share, and I just want to change this place a little bit better at a time. At the end of the day.
yeah.
So,
And
as a go ahead.
no, Adam's just really easy to work with. And then just, it's so empowering to get your words onto paper and share that with other people that you know it's actually going to help.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of like goes back to the coaching. Even if you just sell one copy, I mean, it's one person you get your message out to, and so I love that you came out of your comfort zone just to do it. So,
Yeah.
so as we wrap up, I really want to ask you two things. What's next?
Hmm.
And then I'll save my next one for last. What's next for Ashley? And where can they
Quite
and
honest.
where can they reach out to you at as well? I'm sorry.
Sure, no, you're fine. I don't know what my next step is. I've been trying to just focus on the day-to-day stuff because I do have anxiety, so focusing too much on the future actually makes my anxiety a lot worse. And that's the great thing about being a mindfulness coach. I can tap into the present moment, and it keeps me grounded. So I'm not too sure what my next steps are. But if you want to see what my next steps are, you can follow me on Facebook for Pearl Grit Coaching, or you can head on over to my personal Instagram page, which is Warrior with Grace. I do have a website as well that I try to keep updated. It's pearlgritcoaching.com.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. So since I'm gonna edit my normal ending question I've been doing lately because you're a first responder. So what's one thing that you would if you could give advice to the next generation of first responders to make this realm a better place?
Sure. Um, I guess for an academy level, but even as a seasoned veteran, my favorite quote, and I have a challenge coin with it. Hopefully my brain doesn't deceive me here, but doing the right thing at the right time in the right way for the right reasons. If you just tap into that and you remember that, you will go far in this career because you're focusing on your morals, your personal integrity, and always doing what's right.
I love it. Ashley, thanks for joining me on a Saturday morning. I'm sure you've got better things you probably could be
Yeah.
doing, but you've got a great message and
No,
keep at it.
thank you so much.
Yeah, and you are always welcome back. You just let me know when, okay?
Sure, thank you.